that was fun to go to Carnegie Mellon because one of the world's leading researchers in artificial intelligence at that time was Alan Newell.
Alan Noble, yeah.
I had the fortune to work with him
Oh,
as a postdoctoral associate working with him. But again, they're very peculiar, what you might call coincidence.
coincidence.
Alan Newell was interested in problem solving, general problem solving. How do people think about problems? How do they solve the problems? He was doing fundamental research in that area. But he was also a learner. He was learning a new area. What was this new area? This is the use of artificial intelligence in teaching.
Okay.
How do you use it in education? And that is the area in which I was interested at that time. You know, as an engineer, I have always taken this view. As an engineer, my job is to do things that are useful to people.
Right.
And I enjoy learning about artificial intelligence. The mystery of how we think and how we learn is a great mystery. And if we can work in that field, it is valuable. But at the same time, nothing prevents you from asking, how can I use it to be of some use to somebody in India? And I realized this is a poor country. And this poor country is giving me the great opportunity of learning fundamental science. You know, there are people who don't have their chapati at night.
Yeah.
And here they are giving me a great lab to learn artificial intelligence.
True.
And I must give something in return. So I told Newell, I want to work in the applications of artificial intelligence to education also. And artificial intelligence was having a problem. The problem was the fundamental research in artificial intelligence going on at that time was to lay the foundation for great advances. But it was moving rather slowly.
Yeah.
And so I was a bit worried at the rate at which artificial intelligence is going. It might be 30 years from now before I am able to do something useful to anybody with that. And meanwhile, there was ARPANET in Carnegie Mellon. From the first day we went, we were all sitting there at a terminal and typing away on this computer. And one of the great applications was to ask somebody for a paper of his. You send him an email saying, can I have a reprint of your paper? And now through the ARPANET, it would come in one day. So there was a form of communication, email, on the ARPANET on day, I mean, at least for day one for me. And so I got to know a lot of researchers around the US from whom I could ask for a copy of their paper. And so that is what got me looking at the technology. And being an electrical engineer, I looked at the electrical engineering part of the networking. I could understand it. I could build it. I understood what was a modem, how a modem works. And unlike many other people who were in computing, you know, you can be a statistician and be a computer person or a physicist, etc., etc. I had one other angle, a different angle, how to build and how to build in the computer network itself. So I enjoyed that, and I thought maybe when I go back, Tata Institute would allow me to primarily learn artificial intelligence,
Mm.
but also build a computer network. So the dream was, I was split between two subjects.
Mm.
I can always sit back and think, was it right for me to get excited about two different things?
That's true. Mm.
I didn't worry. There is nothing like right. When
Mm.
you are enjoying what you're doing, you
Yeah.
do it. And don't worry about what is right. I didn't want to get 1 ounce more out of my life
Mm. Mm.
by doing the right thing. If I got
True.
1 ounce less, it doesn't matter. But I did two things which I enjoyed.
Mm.
So that was okay. And these were the introductions to my passions in life.
Wonderful.
Computer networks, applications of artificial intelligence in education, in general use of technology in education,
Mm.
and most important, trying to communicate to students the pleasure of learning,
Learning. Yeah.
that having fun.
Correct. Yeah. Very true. I mean, I really, I was transported back with you, to your uh, AI, days. Tell me one thing. When you went there and started looking at AI from what it was then. You had Newell, you had Marvin Minsky, and others, um, and it was more logic based, predicate logic based. And today's AI, which is more of statistical, approach. Uh, where do you think this shift came, and are we headed in the right direction?
In artificial intelligence,
Yeah, because the question, is we have still not come to a point where the computer can understand language properly, where a computer can read a passage and comprehend what the passage is about properly. It is still work in progress.
let the plane go away.
Yeah, sure.
I would like to defend uh, the artificial intelligence researchers
Mm-hmm.
and what they're doing. You see, the truth is, about 10 years ago, I was visiting a well known university in India.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, who is the faculty member who works with artificial intelligence?
Okay.
And my friend told me, nobody.
Mm.
Artificial intelligence is not popular. No student wants to take it. No professor wants to teach it. And
Okay.
it is not that. These
Mm.
were 10 years ago.
Okay.
Today, things are different.
Yeah.
Today there are students going and paying a fair amount of money out of pocket
Yes.
learning artificial intelligence. But
Yeah.
10 years ago, it was not. And many of us are slightly complaining about the new fashion with artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
There have been technical advances, particularly in one direction,
Yes.
recognizing faces, recognizing speech,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, what you may call perceptual tasks.
Yeah.
There have been advances, but the uh, original students of artificial intelligence who are most excited about the fundamental questions.
Mm.
How do we understand?
Understand. Yes.
How do we solve problems? We are sitting around complaining, well, it's good to recognize a face, all right, but I would rather that a machine recognizes the structure of a problem and solves the problem,
Correct.
right? But the reality is, if you look at the advances, they're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
we say, what about language? Where is the progress, etc., etc. I will tell you what is the progress in language today, even though I am very excited about the more fundamental things. The not so fundamental things, but utilitarian things or exciting things that have happened. I write blogs,
Yes.
and I write 3 blogs. One of them is a blog which is in Hindi.
Mm-hmm.
It is called Science, Technology, and Mathematics in Hindi,
Mm-hmm.
the STEM subjects in Hindi. And it is based on a theory that India is one bad thing in Indian education is that people like you and me don't talk in Kannada, don't talk in Hindi, don't talk in any other language which is Indian. We, when we go out to the YouTube and talk on it, wherever we talk in English.
Correct.
Whereas 85% of India reads newspapers only in Indian languages. So people like us owe something to this country.
Yeah.
We cannot abandon our mother tongue and run away.
Yeah.
It is as bad as abandoning your mother and running away.
Yeah. Mm. Mm.
So I would like to write in an Indian language, and using my whole theory. Learning is fun. Learning an Indian language is fun. And if I am 75 or 80, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to go ahead and learn an Indian language. I've always learned a bit of Hindi, but not enough. And my mother tongue is Tamil. But people who want to do something utilitarian, like engineers, we ask the question, where will the larger number of learners be?
Yeah.
They are Hindi speakers. I might write a blog, 4 times as many people might read my Hindi blog than my Tamil blog. So even though Tamil would have been easier for me to write, I chose Hindi.
Okay.
But my Hindi is not good enough to write properly. But I said, doesn't matter. The way very often professors have this comfort. If you don't know something, you can teach it.
Yeah.
At the end of the class, the person who has learned most is yourself.
Is it? Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Because you prepared like hell the previous night. And that kind of learning you don't do otherwise. Only by teaching you learn. So I started my blog, and I've been running it for 3-4 years now. And how do I publish in Hindi? First, I write it in English, unfortunately. And then I go to Google. Google Chacha translates it for me into Hindi.
Okay.
Then I sit with it and read it, try to improve it. I do post editing. I do a fair amount of post editing. When I'm satisfied with it, I send it to my friend, Mr. Rora.
Okay.
Rora was the Hindi officer at the National Center for Software Technology.
I see.
And every year, there were occasions where I would speak in Hindi at NCST, like, like for instance, the Independence Day. Such days, I would speak in Hindi. And I would write it in English. My Hindi officer would translate it.
Okay.
And give it to me. Then I would sort of read it, prepare, and then give a talk. And after I retired and started writing blogs, I said, Rogaji, if I wrote something for a blog, would you be an editor and look at it and see what is wrong with it? And Rogaji is my partner. He is in Bombay, and I write the Hindi blog
Mm-hmm.
in English, translate it with Google Translate, and send it to improve it myself.
Okay.
There is a simple way to improve. You know what is the best way I can improve my Hindi blog?
Mm-hmm.
I change the English.
Okay.
It is easier for me to change the English than to change the Hindi.
Hindi.
I don't know enough Hindi. I change the English till the Hindi seems to be right.
Okay.
And once it is right, I send it to my friend, Rora.
Mm-hmm.
And Rora approves it and sends it back.
Mm-hmm.
He corrects a number of things. And then we publish it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been learning.
Okay. Nice.
So why am I saying this? This launched me into learning Hindi in a more serious way. I realized, how can I get vocabulary in Hindi? I have never read 3 books in Hindi. Maybe I have read 2 or 3, not more than that. I have to read. So let us choose the kind of Hindi book I would love to read. Premchand's stories.
Mm.
So at the moment, my wife and I are sitting around reading Premchand's story called Idga.
Okay. Mm.
And reading it is difficult, but you must see the technology.
Mm.
If I don't understand a word, Kindle book, I read Premchand stories in Kindle books, and I go and press that word. And the Kindle book gives me the Hindi version.
Wow. Mm.
Hindi equivalent of that English word.
Mm.
And if I want the whole sentence to be translated, I highlight it and I ask for a translation. I don't get it exactly on my Kindle the way I want it, but sometimes I copy it and paste it into either Bing Translate or into Google Translate.
Good.
I get a translation. And then I look at the internet and say, can I get an English translation of Idga?
Mm.
Of course, the great Kushwant Singh made a beautiful translation of Idga into English.
Mm.
I download it, I first read it,
Mm.
and then I go to the Hindi Idga. Now, to me, it appears the tools I have got to learn Hindi
Mm.
are 10 times more effective. Like, for instance, very often when I have to write something and I can't get the exact effect with the translator, there is a tool called input in Hindi.
Input tools. Language
Google input tools.
Yeah, yeah.
I take the Google input tools. I can type in Roman letters and it will transcribe that very smoothly into Hindi words. Or I can go to the InScript keyboard and I can type in original Hindi script.
Yes.
And all this is there. Now, would you call it artificial intelligence? No. It is not strictly artificial intelligence.
No, it's not.
But in artificial intelligence, we are used to that statement. Anything that becomes possible, some professor will say that is not artificial intelligence because it can be done.
Okay.
You always define artificial intelligence as what cannot be done.
Yeah, what cannot be done.
And we have done a lot in artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And very often, if I want something, I say, hey, Siri. And the voice assistant on my phone says, yes, what can I do for you? Can you find a translation of another Premchand, the story? I found this on the web, says Siri, and it appears on the screen.
True.
Is this artificial intelligence? So to me, it appears we have done a fair amount in artificial intelligence. The fact that a cell phone can understand my voice and can help me and can use the internet and point out where to go on the internet. These are all advances.
Very true.
And you may say, where is the fundamental advance? Where is that theory of problem solving book, which tells everybody exactly how the mind works to solve problems? Don't worry, we are making progress. It won't be very long before we do that. Among the many revolutions we are enjoying,
Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
things that will happen.
Now you see, now I am starting to appreciate your line of thought and how you got from A to B to C to, in your journey. It's, so amazing. While in CMU, you went in to do a research, during your sabbatical on artificial intelligence. How did you catch on to data communication? And you started thinking about data communication a lot more. Is that how it happened?
After all, I had spent 2 years at the IIT Bombay,
Right.
where it was a master's degree in electronics.
Mm-hmm.
And the next 3 years or so at DIFR, I worked on electronics related things. So electronics was never far away from me, at least in those days. When I got away from electronics was really about 1971. But I was reading about electronics. There were
Okay.
advances in electronics, I was reading. And after, when you get excited as a student about amateur radio communication, you are never going to forget communication.
Yeah.
Data communication is not all that far from amateur radio.
True. Very true. Yeah.
So you keep learning. Like you learned Morse code at some time. Last year when I had gone to the US, I bought myself a kit to build a Morse code learning gadget.
Okay.
It is an oscillator
Yeah.
which translates the dida
Yeah.
into tones.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a small kit. I can assemble it and play with it. And I wanted to go and take the exam for Morse code so that I can get some amateur audio facility in Bangalore. But at the moment, I am getting to be a little bit more careful about my learning expeditions. The journey is not far ahead. My each year is more valuable now. Therefore, I cannot afford the luxury of learning everything that I can think.
Correct. Well said. Well said. I think, yeah, I'm just watching the kind of philosophy that you grew up with, and it fits in so well. You started off saying you got to understand your limitations. You got to understand what you can do. Life deals a set of cards, and how well you played. It's all sort of fits in there. You you do your electronics, but you are interested in artificial intelligence. You go to CMU, you deal with artificial intelligence, but you want to come back and build, probably the next data network. And that's what you did, if I'm not wrong, right? From CMU, you came back to TIFR?
Yeah. When I came in 1973. And my computer group was expanding rapidly. Professor Narasimhan and Professor Menon had laid the foundations for further development of the group. What was the group? They wrote a proposal in 1971 saying we will create a national center for software technology.
Okay.
And our group will grow up into the national center. And one day that group will become an institute of its own.
Okay.
So 1973, I come, there is a brand new $2 billion computer. In fact, I got the opportunity to go and visit that computer in the United States at the manufacturer's facility, along with Professor Narasimhan, and see tests being run on it. And by the time I come back, that computer is already there at TIFR.
Which computer was this, Doctor?
This was called a Digital Equipment 1077.
Okay. Okay.
DEC computer.
Tech. Yeah.
And it was a time sharing computer, it was this and that. And there were the word software in those days, many people would have thought refers to the banyan and things like that. The only software India knew 1971 would have been innerwear. But
Yeah.
these gentlemen had thought of the word software. And they had understood that the software was going to become a very important technology. And so there was a group dealing with software. And what do you want to do as a researcher coming back? I said, I would like to work with communication software. Because a lot of communication, like for instance, take the cell phone. What is most valuable in this cell phone? It is software that drives the cell phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is software that makes it possible. And the computer, but I did not think about cell phone software at that time. I was thinking about ARPANET-like software.
Okay.
And so I said, I will work with communication software. So I was supported by TIFR to form a group on communication software and create software for Indian-made computers and build a computer network out of Indian-made computers.
Okay.
And we did all this.
So just a second before you move on, I just want to take you back to CMU. You have been using the CMU infrastructure, internet infrastructure at that point in time, which was mostly ARPA infrastructure. And you talked about getting articles and e-prints or reprints through the ARPA network. So at that point in time, did you ever think that I should get involved in building these kind of networks while being in CMU?
I knew I wanted to work with the networks.
Okay.
In exactly what form I would be able to contribute, I did not know.
Okay.
So it was one of the dreams, and to do work with computer networks.
Okay.
So,
that's nice.
But the picture evolved later when I came back. And one of the nice things that came was, there are exciting things in the world. One of them was, in particular, let me mention, there is the notion of open access. There is open software, public domain software. And there are some people who have encouraged it a lot, like the Americans did. The Americans got a lot out of that public domain software. The Stanford University particularly was involved in this activity. They had worked on a public domain version of Unix software.
Right.
And making Unix software, operating systems were very expensive. I remember an operating system for which we received a quote at TIFR, $600,000.
Wow.
And we can't afford. But Stanford was playing a different game. The Americans were playing a different game. There were many, many operating systems around in the world. But this version of Unix had been paid for by the US government and was built by university students. This is called, I think, Berkeley Unix.
Berkeley Unix. Yeah.
Berkeley Unix.
Yeah.
And the American law has a very interesting principle that when the US government pays for research and a US university develops it, it should be in the public domain.
Okay.
And if you put it in the public domain, it is available very cheaply. It is available to all manufacturers in the US. It is also available under American law to anybody in the world.
Oh.
So we wanted to play with Unix, learn Unix and use Unix. And I asked how much will it cost me to get a